Hi, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. We are so happy to be a part of this incredible global conference. This panel is called Paradigm Shift, Planning and Designing for Climate. And what we want to focus on today is that how does the design community begin with ecology, not fit it in at the end? How do we design at the larger scale, the scale of systems? And our aim is not really for the sort of economic success at the project scale, but really for planetary health. In a world of daily climate events, plus environmental rollbacks, reversed environmental policies, and fragmented ecologies wherever you look, there is real urgency. Planning at regional scales takes decades, yet our time is very critical. How do we respond to ecology and at the same time, the urbanizing trends we see across the globe? As the world urbanizes, we need to find ways to restore ecologies. I like this quote to kick things off by Robert Brown, who was a former senator in Australia, that the future will be green or not at all. And I think that really underlines the urgency of changing the language of design. As we approach 10 billion people on the planet by 2050, we're seeing projected urban populations that we have never seen before. Mumbai, Beijing, Dhaka, all getting very close to or over 40 million people. We have never seen numbers like this. Cairo, New York City, tremendous urbanization, population increase. How do we accept that, but at the same time emphasize the natural environment? The London School of Economics did a great assessment of this and asked questions like, what are the greenest characteristics or assets of your city, in your opinion? And over energy, transport, water, waste, the quality of the natural environment was key to everyone that was interviewed. Items like a city covered by forest or clean harbors where you can swim, good access to green and blue surfaces, preserving and enhancing wetlands. I think this was a very good survey and shows the importance to everyone of improving the quality of our environment. So we have a very interesting panel. We have Kongjian Yu sitting in Beijing today. We have Ellen Liu sitting in San Francisco, and we have Yinying Zhou sitting in Shanghai. If we could go to Kongjian Yu's slide. Yes, thank you. So Kongjian, I'll introduce you and turn it over to you, and then I'll come back and introduce Ellen and Yinying. Kongjian is recipient of the Doctor of Design at Harvard, GSD, the Kongjian Chair Professor of Design at Peking University. He's the founder of the Peking University College of Architecture and Landscape, the founder of Landscape Architecture Frontiers magazine. If you haven't seen this, it's a remarkable magazine, and founder and principal of Turenscape. Subjects like ecological security patterns, the big feet revolution, art of survival, and sponge city are some of the key concepts and contributions that Kongjian has researched and talked so eloquently about. He has worked in over 250 cities worldwide, applying these ideas to the landscape. So with that, I welcome Kongjian. I'll turn it over to you, and then I'll come back after your talk for the other panelists.
Thank you, Phil. It is my great honor to talk to you about what I have done in the past 20 years and to share the view about how the paradigm shift can be addressed. So climate change, of course, we have all the challenges, and the solution I will say is a sponge city. It's a nature-based solution. This morning, This noon, I made a keynote speak about nature-based solution. But in this talk, I will particularly talk about the sponge city that deal with water, the main challenges, but also other issues like pollution, like habitat loss, and drought at the same time. So it's a multiple services, it's multiple functions using this nature-based solution.
Kongjian,
Now to
sorry,
address all,
we're not seeing your slides if you're sharing your screen. If you wouldn't mind sharing again, perhaps.
you didn't see it?
We're not seeing your
Is that
slides
right?
yet.
You cannot?
Thank
Not,
not yet.
Okay, let me see.
Sorry for interrupting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as I said, we have to address this problem using the nature-based solution. Now, for these all multiple urban issues, including water, flood, urban inundation, pollution, we usually use conventional solutions of great infrastructure. But these great infrastructure simply lack resiliency, and expensive in terms of energy, material, and certainly cost so much concrete, you can see. When compared to the US, last century, the US is the most wasteful country in terms of use of concrete. But in China, in just 3 years, we consumed the same amount of concrete that the US have consumed in 100 years. So you can imagine how much great infrastructure we have built. And it was simply messed up the whole natural system. Our rivers been dammed in China. So the alternative is a green infrastructure, a nature-based solution, a holistic solution that provide multiple services, the ecological services, provision, regulation, life supporting, and cultural services. So that's a holistic solution, the infrastructure. And such green infrastructure, we have a nickname now in China called the sponge city. In my definition of sponge city, it is simply an ecological infrastructure that deal with, that retain water, clean water, restore habitat, and to be climate resilient. It's basically nature solution, natural-based solution. So in the past 20 years, we have practicing and testing this kind of solution based on nature, and we have built over 500 cities in about more than 200 cities in China. Now today, I just want to give you 2 examples how this green infrastructure can work. These 2 cities are in the south tip of China, Hainan Island, suffering the monsoon climate each year, flood season and dry season. So it's about how can we create climate resiliency by green solutions. So the usual problems you can see, urban inundation together with pollution, flood, and the lack of any public space accessible for use during the monsoon season. These are a very usual problem. Over 400 cities in China are suffering the same problem, but particularly in the south part of China. So planning, as Phil just mentioned, think big, make a master plan for the whole urban region to create a green sponge system with a big picture. Use nature. Instead of the pipes, flood walls, we actually try to remove all these concrete flood walls and recovering the natural system and testing how this can work. And we find this critical strategic point in the middle of the city and test this sponge city solution. This we call eco-puncture. I use my friend's Nemo's new book called the Eco-Puncture. So eco-puncture, like acupuncture, we point where it's a critical spot in the city as a human body. And this is a spot that connects rivers, waters, and suffering urban inundation. And the property value surrounding this site is really very low. Devaluates the whole area because of the flood, urban flood. And the technique is to revival the ancient wisdom. We simply use pond and dike system in the Pearl River Delta area. In that marsh Pearl River Delta area, for the hundreds of thousands of years, testing, trial, and the failure, and we, the Chinese people, have learned how to work with, to live with, and to build a city with a marsh, within the marsh. And we borrow and inspired by this kind of ancient wisdom, create islands, forests above the lake, and create habitat and public space by just simple cut and fill. Very simple, just one machine to create this sponge. And that's the rendering. It's a huge area. You can see right in the middle of the area, about 1 square kilometer in size. As the rendering, use pond dike system, islands. So these are very simple technique. And just in 1 year, that's the process, how these been transformed into a sponge, which have multiple function. Now, the water is collected and filtered and habitat restored, and also integrated with public space, multiple purposes. And that's the result. You can see that is the before, after. The problem of urban inundation been solved, and certainly create a beautiful park right in the middle of the city. Now, if you can do one project in the middle of the city, one park, we can do the whole drainage system. So this is another project, also in Hainan Island, but in Haikou city, a whole river, about 20 kilometers long. Again, you can see the problems here: flood, urban inundation, pollution, urban surface water runoff, polluted sewage leak, leaking. And this is a conventional solution. You always try to dredge in the river and align the bank with the concrete, try to build the wall higher and higher. For 20 years, the problem never solved. So we take another way, as I said, the alternative, the green way, the nature-based solution. Create a river, recovering the river system, have sections, three sections around the river, the lower sections, the middle sections that ride along through the dense city, and the upper sections. So we take different solutions, but certainly it's the same nature-based solution. Terracing, islanding, and removing the concrete. That's the existing river like that. Break off, remove all the concrete. Now that sounds impossible in China, but now it's become because we are still building all these flood walls in some other part of the city. But in this project, you can see it's actually show how we actually remove the concrete and divert the surface floor, the storm water through the terraced riverbank, and use the riverbank as a fuel changing system. And that's process of creating the terraces. And it only take 1 year, believe it or not, it only 1 year we have transformed the whole gray riverbank into a green terraced sponge system. And certainly we have tested and measured. You can see 85% of the nitrogen and phosphorus can be cleansed through this process. That's today you can see it become a beautiful park, and the water being cleansed, And as that's a process, it's a hard concrete construction process, and the mangrove come back, and the recycling the concrete turn into islands, so that habitat can be created for birds, and the fish come back. And this was that was 2015, and that's today. Fish, so much abundance, so much fish come back to the city. So these just two examples. I'll just show you that it is such a quick, fast, efficient solution based on nature. So we have this think, the way we build our cities and the way we treated the water and the way we live. The shift from gray infrastructure to green is challenging traditional design practices, technically, aesthetically, and ethically. It will revolutionize the moral criteria and values that the professionals are compelled to follow in practice. So climate change is an opportunity for us to transforming our design profession. And it is across the scale. It's a planet scale all the way to the backyard. Thank you. That's my talk.
Let me turn it over now to Ellen Liu. Ellen is a director of urban design and planning, the city design practice at Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, and is sitting in San Francisco. She's a world-renowned urban designer and a sought-after speaker. She gives many talks around the world, and she has consulted with over 200 mayors and government leaders, multiple cities, both in the United States and in Asia. She's a board member of SPUR, the San Francisco Planning and Urban Research Center, and the Global Institute for Transportation and Development Policy. I've worked with Ellen for over 30 years, I think, and it's a great honor to have Ellen join the panel. So Ellen, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Phil. And it was what an honor to be part of this panel. Let me just get to my screen. And so I would like just to use one case example to talk about the idea of planning at a larger scale. And this particular case study is in the city of Chengdu. The city has built a new airport, and then how to plan the urban development that will ensue around the airport. So it's the older city is right here, and then the airport is right here, and then this will be the new city. It's a huge area that it was supposed to be planned. It was comprised of the area of Manhattan, Barcelona, Washington D.C. and San Francisco and more. But to do that kind of development, it takes an integrated team of architects, urban planners, landscape architects, ecology specialists, civil engineers, transportation planners, and you keep going. So we kind of roll our sleeves up and then work together. So just a brief picture of Chengdu. It is in the middle part of China, and it has because of the slowing in the region, it has poor air quality. And then with the congestions and wide street, air quality is even getting worse every day. So this is the city of Chengdu's air quality conditions. And then that's where the area we're working on. And without much of newer urban development, it's already lower than the World Health limit. So as we keep going, we really need to make sure that we don't bring the bags, the congestions, the dirty airs from urban area to this new area, but find a new way to clean the air and to improve it to be better. So it takes really, as I was saying, a much more integrated approach to think about ecology, resiliency, energy, carbon, the equity issue, mobility, health, and also the issue of health, heritage, and identity. So we look at this, from what is the business as usual model and what a new approach could be, including the sponge city idea that Kongjian just talked about. So how do we ditch the concrete pipes and drains and create integrated stormwater solution? So just to highlight a few, this piece of land is very unique. It used to be in the bottom of the sea. So the landscape has a lot of, thousands of hillocks. So how do we plan the growth of the city that really is sensitive to the topography and ecology of the area, and preserving some natural corridors, and also climate change and storm, windstorms and all that flooding issues, and integrate our city with the natural topography. So to do that, the collaborative team analyze the forests that need to be kept in the area, which is very unique because of the hillock landform, understanding the local watershed. And then there are 18 dams in the area. So when the dam, in the case of unlikely case of dam failure, how do you protect the future urban inhabitant from these threats? And then the green corridors in the area. And of course, we talk about air quality. How do we maintain wind flow and then create a development zone that is well integrated and work with the nature? So when we talk about working with the nature, we really look into the natural topography of the land, and then, how that should preserve the natural drainage corridors, wind corridors, and then create a much more sensitively designed urban form. That's why this urban form is so special. It doesn't look like any. It's because the land here is very different. And of course, resiliency issue, we talk about the river corridors. How do we protect the ecology of the area, and also protecting the low-lying area from, urbanization that will conflict with ecology, and also be susceptible to future flood. And then something that is really special that we work together with our ecological specialists, our landscape architect, and our infrastructure engineers, is we don't do one thing at a time. We really want to do many things at a time. So the ecological system is actually integrated with the infrastructure system. So for instance, just create little dams and ditches to, submerge, to deal with water and flooding issue, but we will have submerged microturbines, in turn that will generate local energy, and at the same time protecting and working with water management. So how do we continue to leverage this approach that everything we do, every investment we do, we leverage that for multiple benefits at different levels. We also talk about the idea not only on the engineering side, the other side is how do we create landscape that really, is open, is lush, that filters air, and then manage the stormwater, very much so like what Kongjian was talking about. And so that will invite people outdoors and have a healthier lifestyle and closer to the nature. To talk about low or positive carbon development, we have to talk about transportation. And it is not just the transportation and transit, but really how do you integrate development with the transportation system, or they influence each other from the very beginning. And besides the integration, it's also very important to set an ambitious target to reduce the use of single occupancy automobiles, and then really target a very high percentage of our transportation investment in the non-polluting and in the green infrastructure like transit and non-motorized transportation mode. Over that, we also want to talk about the health and wellness of nature, and also the people and the lifestyle. We want to create an area that is very clean. So this one is particularly important, as I mentioned. This valley here, the air is already, the natural air is already below the World Health Standard. So we look into how do we get away from a business as usual urban form, start introducing the natural, start preserving the natural green corridors, not only for storm drain, but also for wind flow. And then we added to the urban framework that, you know, will work to enhance the wind green, and then create a urban framework that is that really build on the nature and allow clean flowing both water and the air. So as you can see, the improvement of percentage of area with wind flow, before that was 61%, and with this kind of very sensible urban approach and urban form design, we will allow the area to increase by 17%, to that 78% of the area will have some basic wind flow, which is very critical in cleaning the air over there and maintain a high quality living environment. And of course, we cannot do this without thinking about the local identity, the traditional landscape, the hillock forms, and also the local culture and how the villages used to integrate with the landscape and the architectural character of this region. So here in this region, the landscape, the climate is very mild, it's very comfortable. It doesn't have a lot of rain. It also doesn't have huge, you know, very long sunlight. So this area, traditional living is there's a lot of indoor, outdoor environment. And so even in the new environment, we set up guidelines to encourage people to design in a way that is very responsive to the local conditions, not only in terms of topography, the water management system, but the architectural expression of integrating indoor and outdoor living. There is also a lot of traditional design details and vocabulary, such as the screen system, and then very short eaves because it doesn't really rain and it doesn't have very strong sunlight, that to bring this kind of responsive architecture into the new language of, into the modern architecture language. So when we do all this together, we would like to continue to promote the idea that is transit-based. This is a transit center that's planned, but also very importantly, environmentally based. So this is my little short presentation, and I will hand it back to Phil.
Thank you, Ellen. The last presenter is an emerging young talent in SOM's office in Shanghai, Yinying Zhou. Yinying has been developing a very strong focus on responding to culture in urban design in Chinese cities, and also weaving into that response a larger ecological mission. She has been working with the city of Jinan for many years now, especially one great project I hope she will talk about is the Yellow River National Wetland Park, which is becoming a very interesting project for her. So Yinying, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Okay, it's an honor to be in this panel and discuss how design responds to climate change. Before I start to share the Yellow River project, I just want to quickly go through what happened in the planet. Actually, the planet is facing dramatic changes since 1960. The global population has more than doubled. Over 17% of the world growing population will live in urban area by 2050. So in the past 40 years, the global temperature has risen sharply to about 0.7 degrees. And as we already see in the tremendous land-based and marine environment has already been negatively impacted by urban growth and human action. So today, the COVID-19 pandemic also has caused a global impact on our urban life. So how can the cities prepare to achieve a healthy future? We actually are aiming to break the discipline island and focus on the interconnected approaches to balance the relationship between human and nature. As Phil mentioned, in 2018, we created the master plan and the planning framework for a national wetland park for Jinan City along the 183-kilometer river bridge. We carried out analysis at various scale of country, region, city scale, key demonstration area, and also the phase 1, 3-kilometer phase 1 park. So this big scale landscape does not follow political boundary and traditional scales, but emphasize intergovernmental coordination and cooperation between diverse disciplines. The whole river was envisioned as a national.
Yinying, we're still seeing your very first slide. I don't know if you are advancing your screen.
Okay, let me check. So right now it's the national scale of the Yellow River watershed. Are you on the same page with me?
Yes.
Okay, that's cool. So the whole river was envisioned as a national park. The plants, wetland, mountains along the river corridor make up the large ecosystem of this future park. Yeah, which originally the Yellow River is Mother River of China, as everyone knows. Over the past 100 years, the remarkable engineered levee has effectively protected the city and the villages from flooding. However, also disconnected the citizen from the river. So our target is to use this opportunity to transform the once isolated suspended river and engineer the river into an accessible park for all the citizens. So we actually developed 4 themes for the Yellow River, including the healthy ecology, confident culture, the public engagement and the interaction. And also we want to propose the strong agricultural economic for the cities. These 4 themes help to build a 183 continuous park experience, provide a vibrant ecological system, and also connect the Yellow River and the Tai Mountain. Both of them are most important cultural symbol in China. The phase 1 park, which we call the Chuehua Autumn Color Park, link the past and the future of the city, will continue the significant natural assets, including Hua Mountain and also Daming Lake. So we also develop a vibrant ecological flooding control system. We'll be use this system to capture, clean, and slow release the stormwater, and also improve the biodiversity and restore habitats. So instead of imposing large-scale interventions, we are using a so-called surgical incision into the existing land use. This kind of restoration system is applied to our 3 square kilometer phase 1 park design. So here is showing some detailed diagrams to show how the eco cells works. So this kind of forest cells and also seasonal wetland and also meadow system will work as a restoration system to improve the whole habitat and clean the water. And also the engineered levee system will be transformed as a natural park. So share the same idea Kongjian just mentioned, to use some natural way to resolve the challenge. So the natural park will also become a passive recreation destination for the growing North District. We also did the master plan for the city balcony, which is the phase 1 of the North City, will become a starting point for this connection between the river and the city. So as this district is aiming to achieve 100% self-sufficiency on water, food, and energy, the project is an attempt to focus on health. By blending agriculture with community, forming a complete living natural framework and promoting a healthy lifestyle, we believe the Yellow River and the North City project will achieve the harmonical existence between city and nature. So that is my presentation. Yeah, I will hand over to Phil. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Yinying. Let's jump into some questions because I know we don't have a lot of time. Kongjian, I wanted to come back to you on this idea of the ecological infrastructure that you mentioned, this green infrastructure, nature-based infrastructure, has made really great advances in Chinese cities. I think much more so than just about anywhere in the United States or in the EU. How can designers advance this thinking faster? How can designers influence the policymakers so that this is something that designers are bringing cities, policymakers along in a much faster way? What's your experience with the people that are scripting policy?
Yeah, I think particularly in the Chinese system, you really have to have the political power at your side to push forward this thinking. That's why the first thing when I come back to China is to write a book, to talk to mayors and to write letters to mayors, and even I even send a letter to president, so former president and sixth president, and the prime ministers, and certainly get their notice. And so that's why we have a national movement of sponge city and ecological security pattern. Now this all become a national agenda and become the CPC's Congress, even becomes this a national agenda. So that's why I think, first of all, you need to give, as a designer, you're not just a pure artist or a designer and technical engineer. You have to be a social activist, or in some way you have to really to make use of the political power to go this way. That I think is critical for this. If we have to think this the Earth as a site, the Earth, the whole planet, or the regional landscape, the regional landscape, you have to go that way. Yeah, technically we know also solution, I think.
I agree. I think this is such an obvious solution, and as you mentioned, it's quick to implement, and it's actually very inexpensive on a square meter basis compared to hard infrastructure. Ellen, let me just jump to you quickly. In the United States, now that you're working in both worlds, you're working in the Asian world and the US world, you know, we see in many US cities, the poor neighborhoods lack public open space, and yet many of these neighborhoods are prone to flooding. Are you seeing this ecological infrastructure finding its way into the more challenged neighborhoods within the United States? Are you seeing this coming into US cities?
Yes, yes, that's a very important question. You know, on the West Coast, California or San Francisco Bay Area, where I am, I think it's not a consistent approach. Like Phil, like what you talk about, these environmentally threatened area are very often where the deprived, the marginalized communities live. You know, whether it's sea level rise or the great fires that we have, it's very challenging. So some areas we are achieving success in terms of, adapting the current environment with new infrastructure that is much more ecological themed. But some other areas, it's still a long way to do that because we did, pave a large area and, created this great infrastructure. And because the way our improvements are financed in the US, it will take a long time to convert those to be much more earth friendly.
Okay, and before we run out of time, Yinying, I'm interested, what's the next step on the Yellow River? Are you able to have broader conversations with adjacent cities beyond Jinan? Are you sharing this with other provinces? Is there a way that this idea can expand to multiple provinces along this river corridor?
Yeah, this question is very important actually. It's what we are trying to do to build the connection with other provinces and share our experience with other provinces. We did the project in 2018. Actually, last year, the ecological plan has become the national strategy for Yellow River, which is very exciting and exactly with our approach for and vision for Yellow River. And as I know, a lot of cities like Zhengzhou and also the Yellow River Delta and also the Taiyuan, the Shanxi province are trying to build the wetland, the park system. The different cities have the different strategies based on the local character and of the Yellow River. So we are trying to share the experience with Zhengzhou and other cities who share the same character of Yellow River downstream. I do think that is very important.
Well, Mina, I just wanted to ask you, are we finding additional questions to the panelists?
We currently don't have any questions that you already haven't answered, but I think your question hinted all the other questions that were coming from the audience. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank the panelists. I think this is such a critical subject to not only understand the principles behind ecological infrastructure, but how it's being implemented. And all of you are implementing in many interesting ways. I encourage you to get these projects out in front of not only the design communities, but the broader administrative powers of cities and regions to change our laws so that we can implement far greater ecological infrastructure. I think it's critical. Thank you all. You're all brilliant. We're honored to have you on this panel today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil, and all of our presenters. just like to tell all of the attendees that joined us and all the presenters, thank you for joining us for this last of the 3 teach-ins for the Carbon Positive Reset 1.5 degree global teach-in. And remind folks that there is one final round of tool demos. If you're interested in watching a tool tutorial, you can go to the agenda page on the website and find the links there. Thank you again to all of our wonderful panelists, speakers, moderators, all of our partners that helped put this event on, and the 2 previous events. All of this will be collected, all of the recordings on the Carbon Positive website, as well as the follow-up Q&A. So come back to the site and share all the presentations and learn what was presented in the other regions as well. Thank you again.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.